Hello, I wanted to talk about boundaries today. It is such a big buzzword in psychology, and sometimes people get sick of hearing about it and think it's just overused and over talked about, but I'm not so sure that that can be the case. Boundaries come up in so many situations, in so many facets of life, and it's important that we maintain those boundaries routinely every day, or it really can jeopardize our mental health. It can impact depression, anxiety, relationships, workplace situations. So maintaining boundaries is super important, not only for warding off like negative mood states or problems, but also building our self-esteem and helping us move toward goal setting achievement or goal achievement. So let me kind of dive in here. It can be, the word boundaries, like an abstract idea. I know the first time I heard someone use this word, I was a young adult, and I just, the first time I heard it out loud in sort of a psychological context, let's say, it sounded abstract to me, and I wasn't 100% sure, like, what do they mean exactly? I am a very concrete thinker, so that could be part of it. But, the term boundaries, it can be abstract and invisible. If you're talking about emotional boundaries, you can't see those. But it can be very literal. So, again, good for us concrete thinkers. A boundary from your yard to your neighbor's yard, or a time boundary, like the flight leaves at X time. It's very clear what the boundary is. So you can kind of see it a couple different ways, just more kind of esoterically and very concretely. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about weak boundaries, because that's really what we're concerned about. People don't come to therapy because they're great at setting boundaries and it's not a problem. People come to therapy with the things that they're struggling with. So let's talk about weak boundaries, because that's the problem area, right? First off, where did that even come from? Why may a person struggle with boundary setting? Could be multiple reasons why there's a problem there. One could be, maybe it's just like in the personality. Maybe someone's just naturally kind of timid and doesn't really want to like step on people's toes and speak up for themselves. They're just kind of quiet, timid natured. That's possible, okay? So that might be a little harder for that person to set boundaries. Another place would be like for somebody who's struggling with anxiety. That also is maybe an extension of that, like a next rung up from just being timid and shy. But maybe there's anxiety and a person's really scared to set those boundaries and say no to people and be firm and clear and state what they want. And a person can also be poor at setting boundaries because they never learned to. It was not modeled for them. There are not people in the household teaching them that. And in fact, they were probably teaching them the disrespect of boundaries. So you see that especially in families where there's dysfunctional behavior and abuse. So, like boundary violations at their worst could be abusing like emotional boundaries and yelling at people, name calling, like crossing lines in that way. It could be physical, with physical assault, physical abuse, and also with sexual assault, abuse, rape. These are of course boundary violations of the most intimate part of ourselves. So when there's family systems where abuse is prevalent, other dysfunctional behaviors, this can be a breeding ground for modeling poor boundaries. People just storming in on other people, like not respecting a closed door, that's a boundary violation. So things like that. So these different scenarios can contribute to someone having a hard time maintaining boundaries. Another key place is where, someone grows up in a home, let's say, or an environment. It could be at home, it could be with a teacher, coach, neighbor, some adult authority figures there. And that person, is very loud at the very least, but probably more so abusive, angry, maybe raging, basically a scary kind of figure, especially for a kid. And so if you have a dynamic like that, it kind of sets that kid up to be really scared to set a boundary. Why? If I say no, if I stand up for myself, if I say what I want, if I ask you not to X, Y, Z, please ignore the dogs, then, you might not like it. And if you don't like that request, you might be like that person from my youth and get really loud and scary and angry, and that scares the crap out of me and is anxiety provoking. So I'm just going to avoid that. I'm just not going there. I'm not going to speak up for myself. I'm not going to state my preferences. I'm just going to go along with what everybody else wants and acquiesce to the world. So, you can see how, all right, maybe that protected you from, facing somebody's wrath in the moment and facing your own anxiety as a result. But it's, very harmful to you, because that's only going to perpetuate your anxiety and further erode away at your self-esteem. So this is a problem. It's very, very important to start getting used to setting boundaries and overcoming that inclination to avoid them and get away from people pleasing. So, you can start small with small requests of people, small asks, and slowly build up your confidence over time and see that one request after next is not so scary. So let's say you're at a restaurant and you've run out of napkins, so you ask the wait staff when they come around, excuse me, can I have some more napkins? That's a simple ask, asking for something you need from someone who's probably not threatening, because, they're there to please you and working off of, their tips or salary. And so unless you get somebody with just a bad attitude, that should be a safe place to try practicing asserting yourself. Assertion can be that simple, just asking for more napkins, and you can kind of work your way up to sending meals back, and we can get out of the restaurant and, practice these kind of scenarios with stating what you want and what you need in all sorts of settings, up to maybe some of the more challenging ones, like even going back to those people who in your youth scared you. Like, can you face them as an adult and build the confidence there and set boundaries with them now here in the later years? And by the way, I am referencing, that's why I keep looking over my blog posts that I have out on how to use boundaries as a coping skill to reduce anxiety and achieve goals. So for people watching this on YouTube, that's what I'm doing. If you're actually on my blog page watching this vlog, I didn't have to explain that to you. Let's see. Now, I talk about setting boundaries in a few different ways. I've kind of covered some examples of maybe interpersonal boundaries. There's definitely setting boundaries, and we get practice at that every day. Interpersonally, so it could be requests, standing up for what you want. It could be quite literal. I was at a museum not too long ago, and standing looking at a piece of artwork, and out of nowhere, someone walks up and stood like inches from my shoulder when there was plenty of space to my left and right. And I was like, this could be a Seinfeld episode of like the close stander. I don't know, instead of the close talker. But, it was just like a strange thing. And I have no idea why this person felt the need to kind of invade that personal space, but it doesn't matter. I could do something about it, and I did, and took a big step to the left to kind of get out of her space and into my space. And so let's see, there are examples like that. I'm sure you can find examples every single day where you can set boundaries. Another way of setting boundaries is setting emotional boundaries. It's so important for us to kind of check in with ourselves and recognize when, where we're at emotionally. First of all, what are we feeling? And, how much energy do we have in the tank? There are definitely days where you may be kind of spent by the end of the day or spent by the end of the week, and you just don't have much to give anymore, and that's normal and okay. Can you honor that? Can you honor that? And then, like maybe you get an invite to, I don't know, go out and grab dinner, but that's an opportunity where you can say, you know what, I'd love to go to dinner with you, but I'm just drained, and, we can set up for another time. That's an example of setting boundaries to kind of protect your emotional self. Just saying like, I'm just worn out and I'm not going to be much entertainment and I'll take a pass for today. So it could be there. It could be, protecting yourself. Like if someone's kind of, putting some of their emotional baggage on you that's not yours, that you don't want, and like rejecting it and politely like dipping out of that conversation maybe. There are a lot of different ways where it's important to set some emotional boundaries. Time boundaries are, another area. And, a lot of times we think about like maybe wanting people to respect our time boundaries. We want to respect others by, being as punctual as we can, respecting if an appointment has been set for X many minutes, that we stick to that. I have to admit, this is a weak area for me. I'm not great. I have to continually work on it. So, that's maybe something for you to think about. Maybe that's an area too where you might struggle. I want to say too, this whole time I'm talking about setting boundaries between us and somebody else, right? And that's where it comes up a lot. But, you also have to set boundaries with yourself. Like sometimes we might stay up later than we ought to if we want to get a proper amount of rest in order to be refreshed in the morning, but we really want to watch a show or we really want to finish this chapter or whatever. And so when we do that, we're not respecting our own boundaries. We're not setting boundaries with ourselves to take care of ourselves. So that's a way where, we can practice boundaries with ourselves. We can practice boundaries with ourselves with our thoughts. I think we just have to accept whatever thoughts pop in our brain. That can include a lot of negative, worrisome thoughts. And the truth is, we don't have to sit there and entertain negative, worrisome thoughts if we don't want to, or we don't want to at that time. There's a time and a place. Sometimes we do need to indulge in a little bit of our worry as far as like identifying some of our concerns and things we might want to explore, or maybe, other emotions like grief. Maybe we do want to have some time spent in grief, but not all the time. We might want to compartmentalize it a little bit. So we can set boundaries with ourselves to protect ourselves and take care of ourselves in ways like that with emotions. One last thing I want to talk about is, setting ourselves up for success with boundaries in goal achievement. And I include a free worksheet that you can find the links to on my website. But, I think it's important to edit our goals. A lot of times we can be very ambitious, especially with like the new year, or, maybe a new job or new this or new that. And we just I want to do all these 5,000 things. It's good to have ideas and goals, but unrealistic to think you're going to succeed at all those things all at the same time, all in a week or a month or whatever. So it's important to edit and set boundaries with our goals to be successful. So, I'm of the mindset that less is more. You have to simplify to achieve your goals. So I think people like that concept of, reducing the number of goals and really focusing in on like a specific goal. How about just starting with a goal and achieving that goal and then building from there. So like less is more. My suggestion is don't try to take on too many goals. In fact, narrow it way the heck down to one. Start with one goal. And so I developed a worksheet to kind of help walk you through that and like some just specific things to think about in goal setting to make it more likely you'll achieve the goal you set out for yourself. So please feel free to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. If you prefer print, check out the blog. If you'd like that free goal tracker, head to my website, arose-etherapy.com. I'm Dr. Alicia Rozicki. And take care and happy boundary setting.